The listing didn't stand out at first. Just another small, weathered house tucked at the end of a dirt road. But something about it kept pulling me back. 2 bedrooms, deep in the countryside, miles from anyone. The price was so low it felt like a typo, yet the photos made it seem perfectly livable. A little rough around the edges, sure, but nothing I couldn't manage. After months of feeling burnt out and untethered, it looked like the escape I'd been searching for. I drove out one quiet weekend to see it for myself. Graven Hollow Road wound through open fields before vanishing into a tunnel of dense trees, their branches hanging low as if they were watching me pass. The house waited at the very end, completely alone. No neighbors, no cars, just the kind of silence that presses against your ears. I stood in the overgrown yard, keys in hand, thinking, this could work. The porch leaned slightly, paint peeling away in sun-faded flakes, but the frame stood firm. Inside, the air smelled of dust and dry timber, old but sturdy, not rotting. It felt patient. A week later, the papers were signed. I moved in with only the bare essentials. A mattress, a folding table, a few boxes. No internet, barely a whisper of cell signal. It was exactly the kind of solitude I thought I wanted. Peace, or so I believed. The first thing that told me otherwise was the sound. It wasn't loud, not even alarming, just little things. A soft creak in the hallway at night. The sound of a door clicking shut even though I hadn't moved. Houses settle, I told myself. Nothing weird about that. But it started happening every night. I'd be upstairs in bed and hear something downstairs shift, like someone walking from the kitchen to the living room. Then silence. Sometimes I'd go check. Nothing was out of place. Other times I'd try to sleep through it. Then the lights began to flicker. The bulb in the hallway would dim suddenly, then brighten again. At first, I figured it was bad wiring. But I changed the bulbs, replaced a fuse. Still, it happened. Always around the same time, just past 2 a.m. One night, I woke up to the sound of water dripping. I went to the bathroom, dry, checked the kitchen. Nothing. Then I saw it, a puddle on the wooden floor by the basement door. There weren't any pipes above that spot, no leaks. I cleaned it up. The next night, it came back. That was the first time I really felt something watching me. You know that feeling when your skin prickles, like someone standing too close behind you, and the air shifts around your neck? That's what it was like. I stood in the kitchen, staring at that wet floor, and felt like someone or something was in the room with me. I told myself it was stress, loneliness, isolation. Maybe I just wasn't used to the silence out here. But then came the night I saw her. I'd fallen asleep on the couch with the television on. Some static-filled movie was running in the background. I woke up around 3 a.m. to dead silence. No movie, no sound. Just this thick quiet, like someone had sucked all the noise out of the air. Then I saw her. She was standing in the hallway, just past the edge of the living room. I didn't hear her walk in. She was just there. A woman, tall, pale, soaked. Her dress clung to her like she'd climbed out of a lake. Her hair hung limp over her face, dripping dark water onto the hardwood floor. I didn't move, couldn't speak. She took one step forward, her soaked foot making a squelching sound as it touched the ground. Then she raised her hand and pointed right at me. My body reacted before my brain could. I scrambled back, crashed into the table, and bolted up the stairs. I slammed my bedroom door shut and locked it. I sat against it for the rest of the night, heart pounding. In the morning, she was gone, but the floor remained wet. I needed answers. In town, most people avoided the topic. An old woman finally spoke. The house once belonged to Richard Holloway. His wife, Eleanor, drowned in the well. Some say she jumped. Others say he pushed her. That afternoon, I visited the well. The air turned still and cold. That night, I opened the basement. I hadn't gone down there since moving in. The door was stuck, warped from time, but I forced it open. The air that hit me smelled like wet dirt and something worse. Metal, rust, or blood. I walked down with a flashlight. The beam flicked a little, and I cursed myself for buying cheap batteries. The basement was unfinished. Dirt floor, stone walls, and in the far corner a chain, bolted to the wall, long rusted. My breath caught. There were scratches in the stone, deep ones, jagged grooves that tore through the damp surface as if made by desperate hands. I ran my fingers over them and felt the rough edges catch against my skin. Whoever made these marks hadn't just been trying to leave, they'd been fighting for their life. The air felt heavier down there. My breath came out in short, uneven bursts, and I could hear the faint drip of water echoing from somewhere deep in the dark. My flashlight trembled in my grip. I turned to leave to get out before I learned more than I wanted to know, and that's when I saw her again. She stood at the top of the stairs, blocking the doorway. This time, I saw her face. It was swollen, the skin stretched and bloated. Her lips were tinged blue, her hair slick and matted against her cheeks. And her eyes were wide open, frozen in an expression that looked halfway between terror and agony, as if she'd been caught mid-scream and never released from it. She didn't move, didn't blink. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, strained, almost drowned by the sound of the dripping water. "Let me go." The words seemed to sink into me, pulling me down into some invisible undertow. My flashlight slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor, its beam spinning wildly across the walls. The next thing I remember, I was outside barefoot, standing in the cold, gasping for air like I'd been underwater. My heart hammered so hard it hurt. The following day, I brought in a priest. I didn't give him all the details. I wasn't ready to admit to anyone what I'd seen, but I told him about the well. We blessed it together. Then, on his suggestion, we dug along its side. That's when we found them. Bones. The remains were confirmed to belong to Eleanor Holloway. I never found out who she was to the house, but something in me knew she had been here for a very long time. We arranged for a proper burial, placing her in consecrated ground. After that, the house changed. The heavy air lifted. The nights were quiet. For the first time since I'd moved in, I felt safe. But sometimes, when the rain falls in a slow, steady curtain and the world outside is hushed, I hear it again. That faint, rhythmic drip. And every time, the same thought grips me. Did I free her? Or did I wake her? When I first stepped inside my new home, I thought I had found paradise. Tucked miles from the nearest neighbor, the little cottage sat buried deep in the woods, almost swallowed by nature itself. The roof was heavy with moss, the porch sagged with age, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine. It was exactly what I'd been looking for: isolation, quiet, and the kind of stillness that seeps into your bones. No Wi-Fi, no cell reception, no traffic, no voices. Just the creak of tired floorboards and the steady murmur of the wind through the trees. The realtor had said it had been empty for years. Most people passed it over for something brighter, newer, and more connected. But I wanted none of that. I wanted the solitude, and at first, it felt like bliss. The first nights were perfect. I woke to birdsong, brewed coffee, and wrote for hours without a single interruption. No schedules, no noise, no one. But after a while, the quiet started to change. It began small, a single creak above me, while I worked late into the night. I told myself it was the house settling, but it happened every time. Somewhere between 2 and 3 a.m. I checked the attic the next day, pulled down the ladder and climbed up into the stale darkness with a flashlight. Dust coated everything. Cobwebs hung like curtains from the low wooden beams, but nothing seemed disturbed. No signs of animals, no footprints, nothing out of place. Still, the footsteps continued. Every night. Sometimes soft, like someone pacing. Sometimes loud, sharp, like someone stumbling or dragging something heavy. I tried to ignore it. Maybe it was my imagination, or maybe the house was just old and full of quirks. But then came the knocking. 3 soft knocks. Always at exactly 3:17 a.m. I'd wake to the sound like clockwork. Tap, 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 always on my bedroom door. I'd lie frozen under the covers, heart thundering, ears straining. I tried to convince myself it was part of a dream, but the knocks were too real, deliberate, intentional. I opened the door once. There was nothing there, but the hallway, it was ice cold, like stepping into a freezer. I could see my breath, and the cold didn't fade right away. It lingered, as if something unseen stood just beyond my reach, breathing with me. I started locking my bedroom door at night, even barricading it with a chair. But every morning, I'd find the door wide open. The chair moved aside as if nothing had ever blocked it. So I set up a camera. A cheap one, motion activated, pointed directly at my bedroom door. I needed to know. I had to see what was happening. The next morning, I reviewed the footage. At 3:17 a.m., the door creaked open. Slowly, carefully, like something didn't want to wake me. Then, it stepped in. A figure. Tall, unnaturally thin. No face, just smooth, pale skin where features should have been. It had long, bony fingers that curled slightly as it moved closer to my bed. And it stood there, over me, perfectly still for 6 minutes, watching. Then it vanished. Not walked out, not turned around, just gone. I don't remember anything from that night, but when I woke up, my shirt was soaked in blood. I pulled it off and stared at the deep, jagged scratches across my chest, 4 of them, running diagonally from my left shoulder to my right side. They burned like fire. I called the local sheriff. He arrived 2 hours later, a grizzled old man with weary eyes. He inspected the house, the attic, the door, but found nothing. No sign of forced entry, no footprints, no fingerprints. When I showed him the video, his expression changed. He asked for a copy, then told me he'd be in touch. He never came back. The scratches healed slowly, but the presence remained. Every night, 3:17 a.m., the knocks, the cold, the feeling of being watched. I tried burning sage. A friend from college swore it helped cleanse negative energy. I lit it, walked through every room, every corner, chanting softly. I felt silly, but desperate. That night, as I lay in bed, the house groaned. The walls seemed to exhale. And then I heard it. A laugh. Not a sound. A laugh. It didn't come from outside. It didn't come from a specific room. It came from within the walls. A deep, guttural laugh that seemed to echo inside the structure itself. Mocking. Knowing. I dropped the sage stick and backed into a corner, heart racing. Since then, I've started hearing whispering. It began faintly, almost imperceptible, but over time, it grew louder, clearer. Every room I enter, I hear them. Voices overlapping, like 100 people whispering at once. Sometimes they hiss, sometimes they weep, but one phrase keeps repeating. He let me in. Over and over. In the kitchen, the bathroom, even outside. I once heard it whispering from the trees, the wind carrying those awful words. He let me in. But I live alone. And I never opened the door. Did I? I began to doubt myself. I stopped writing. Stopped sleeping. My days blurred together. I tried staying awake all night with lights on, music blaring, but no matter what I did, I always fell asleep. And always woke at 3:17 a.m. My journal is filled with entries I don't remember writing, pages of messy, frantic scrawl, repetitions of the same phrase. He let me in. Sometimes written hundreds of times on a single page, sometimes in languages I don't recognize. I see things now, reflections that move when I'm still, shadows that linger longer than they should. Sometimes, I catch glimpses of it, the faceless man just outside my window, or crouching in a corner when I flick the light on. I found handprints on the ceiling above my bed, long, spidery fingers spread wide in the dust. I scrubbed them away. They returned the next day. I've tried everything. Salt lines, incense, priests won't come. One hung up as soon as I mentioned the address. Another told me some doors weren't meant to be opened. But again, I never opened the door, right? Last night was the worst. I dreamed I was standing outside my bedroom, watching myself sleep. The door was wide open. I was smiling. But something was off. My smile was too wide, too still. Then, in my dream, self's voice, I whispered, "He's here now." I woke up screaming. My front door stood wide open. Muddy footprints, large and uneven, trailed in from the woods and ended right outside my bedroom. I didn't dare follow them back. I couldn't. Since then, the knocking has started earlier, first at 2:17 a.m., then 1:17. Each night, it creeps closer. And now, even when the door stays shut, I can feel it on the other side. Waiting. The house feels different, heavier, like it's holding its breath. Lights flicker, shadows move on their own. Sometimes, I hear the floorboards creak behind me, but when I turn around, there's nothing. I don't sleep anymore. I try, I really do, but the thought of 317 keeps me wired, staring at the ceiling, straining to hear every sound. No matter how hard I fight it, I always seem to drift off, and when I wake, the air is icy, my skin prickled, and I have no idea how long I was out. The house speaks to me now, the same phrase, over and over, from different corners, whispered in voices I don't recognize. He let me in, but I live alone. I never opened the door. At least, I don't think I did. Now, whatever it is, it's inside. And I know it isn't going anywhere.